Aviation is a very cyclical industry. We've seen it after 9/11, the recession in 2008, and most recently the pandemic. My mission here at the Cashflow on the Fly podcast is to arm pilots with all the tools and knowledge they need to achieve financial freedom through real estate. This is your host, Sach Bernhardt, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of the Cashflow on the Fly podcast. This podcast today is really exciting because you have two pilots on the show. You have Mr. Tait over here with us today. Tait, how you doing, man?
Doing great. How about yourself, Sach?
Good. Quick intro about Tait. He is a line checkerman and captain for Hawaiian Airlines. He is a real estate investor, and you have a couple funds, right?
I
And so
do.
he's helping a lot of pilots invest in real estate assets, which is something that we're gonna talk in depth in the podcast today. But above everything, above flying and above real estate and business, my favorite thing about Tait by far is his lifestyle. This dude lives like a rock star lifestyle. And I want to talk about that because it's not coincidence. He did this by design, right? Like it's your lifestyle is something that you work on and is something that you have curated over the years to get to be able to do what you do, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Tait, welcome to the show, man. Can you give us a little bit your background and how you got started in real estate?
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. It was great hanging out with you in Miami a few weeks ago, and good to see you again. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, my background really, I've been obsessed with real estate since I was super young. I think I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 12 or 13, and it changed my outlook on money as not this linear thing that we trade time for, but something that can be created and destroyed. Um, and that's what business is about and investing is about, is that you can decouple money from time, which was a thing that really fascinated me. And I was always super interested to do real estate and create wealth through that. Had I not gone into flying, I actually wanted to go to USC. I wanted to go to business school and I wanted to pursue real estate. But I also had two uncles who were airline pilots. My grandfather was an airline pilot, and that was something that I was always around and thought would be really cool, but I also wanted to do business stuff. And anyway, I got a letter in the mail when I was in senior year of high school, and USC said, sorry, you didn't get in. I got close and I could have transferred in after a semester, but I went to a community college in Southern California and got into aviation and just fell in love with it. And I'm so glad that I did, because this ride has just been incredible. I have so many friends that, I'm sure you did as well, that were like, man, being a pilot's a life hack. I want to go. I can't believe I didn't know that I could do this, when they see the kind of lifestyle that we have. So very fortunate to have followed that path, and then we got to do both. I started buying rental properties in my mid 20s, started with single family homes, bought my first house in, I think 2012 in Vegas, very depressed market, got it for a steal, rented it out. And yeah, the rest was history. Started buying more real estate, rented, moved from there to some appreciation condos in the Seattle area, and then from there into some small multifamily. And the pivot for me, though, was realizing that I didn't love the management aspect of it. I'm a sucker for deals. I love deals. I love analyzing deals. I love the acquisition process. I love buying. I love putting properties under management. But once I had them, it's a very difficult process, as any investor knows, to manage those assets once you have them. Even if you have a property manager who's fantastic, you're the one who's responsible for making sure that if you're using hard money, you got to make sure that the property taxes are being paid and that the insurance is being submitted, and you're chasing contractors around and preparing financials. It's a lot of work on the back end. So my pivot was finding the syndication space, finding the fact that I could be an LP, a limited partner, and invest in other people's deals. And it was just so incredibly freeing to be like, wow, I can build a real estate empire without actually being super hands-on, because I do love what I do. I love flying. People ask me, hey, do you think you'd leave aviation? I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't want to, I've got this great W-2 income. I can just pick up a double time trip and you shovel that money into a passive deal rather than flying across the country to chase contractors around. So that was my pivot. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's a long intro.
I love it, man. What was your introduction to syndications? Where did that pivot come from? Where did you find out about it? Did you go to a conference or something?
Conference, precisely. And if anybody doesn't know the difference between a seminar and a conference, it's a big difference. So a seminar is where some guru is talking and they're going to sell you their program. And that's not to say that there aren't good seminars, but very different. A conference is a place where there's many speakers, ideas are being shared, and usually the attendees are not a bunch of newbies who are trying to gain information from this guru, but instead a lot of people that are there to network. I remember the first conference that I ever went to was the Best Ever Conference in Denver. It's Joe Fairless's conference. And somewhere around 350 attendees, and I mean billions of dollars of net worth under that roof. People are there to share ideas, network, of course, listen to some panels, get some insights, but for the most part, it's a networking event. So that's the first time that I ever even landed on the concept of syndication. I knew that you could lend hard money, but that's debt, right? I didn't know that you could be an equity partner in someone else's deal. So I invested with actually a fellow airline pilot, Ryan Gibson, who is the CIO of Spartan Investment Group. I put some money down with them and was like, man, this is amazing. It was in the storage asset class. And yeah, so that's how I stumbled on syndication.
Love it, man. Do you still have any of the rental properties that you bought when you were in your mid-20s?
I sold everything other than the sixplex in South Carolina. I don't want to sell that. It's in a good location, but I tell you what, if I didn't own it, I wouldn't go out and acquire it. I can
I
tell
love
you
it, man.
that.
Everyone that I know that had any sort of like smaller asset classes, single family homes, duplex, quadplexes,
Yeah.
no, either they will all get rid of them or nobody, like you just said, I wouldn't go out of my way to get it. Everybody, once you go make the leap to bigger units, they just, why go smaller again?
Exactly. And I think that the only difference there is if you're just getting started and if you have the drive to go out and you want to go and create value by showing up and putting the pieces of the puzzle together to create a great product and either flip it or refinance and keep it as a rental, that's great. Syndication doesn't necessarily replace that, but it's a great alternative if you don't want to go do that. And if you already have a few of those and you're like, okay, I'm maxed out, I don't want to scale anymore, it's a great place to just say, hey, I can continue investing, but not have to have a ever growing management nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not easy, man. So like the property management, tell me which asset class is your favorite one and why?
It's like picking your favorite food or something. I think that diversification across asset classes is really great. That's one of the other amazing things about investing passively is I'm not enough of an expert on self-storage or I don't want to be such an expert that I can go out and build a team and start buying 1,000-unit self-storage. I'm not enough of an expert in mobile home parks, and I'm not interested in going to trailer parks and managing those assets. But we can diversify. We can buddy up with top-tier operators. We know plenty enough about it to conduct the due diligence on it, to review the underwriting, to assess the qualitative properties, and to know whether it's a good deal, and to know whether the operators are worth investing with. And so you can diversify across all these sort of asset classes. So I've got three. I think multifamily is a no-brainer. It's not going anywhere. Self-storage, I love the self-storage asset class. And I think mobile home parks are absolutely fantastic. They're cash flow machines.
Yeah, yeah, I love those three asset classes as well. And I like what you touched on, that you're not experts. You're not an expert at running the deal itself.
Correct.
And which is awesome because that's the beauty of like syndications. And that's why it takes a team to put deals together, because you are the expert at connecting people and deals and
Correct.
being the investor relations guy and
also analyzing the acquisition.
analyze.
We do a ton of due diligence on the qualitative and quantitative side to vet deals before we bring them to our investor group. Not to say that we would be experts at managing that deal. If the operator was just to hand it to me, I wouldn't have the skill set or the team to manage it, but we definitely know we have the team and the skill set to vet it from an acquisitions perspective.
Love it. Yeah. And I think this is extremely important. I love it, man. So your model is typically you do funds of funds, right? You create a fund, investors will invest in your fund, and then you go invest this fund in a deal, right?
Correct. And currently we do one-off. So meaning a lot of investors will say, is my 50,000 going to be diversified over multiple deals? And the answer is no. We identify a deal that we want to invest in. We pop up a fund that is specific for that deal, and we get investors on board to that vehicle. And then we invest that vehicle into a specific asset or portfolio of assets that is identified. That's different than, say, an open fund where you invest 50K and then we have discretion over the course of a year to go and deploy those funds, call capital in and deploy those funds into a diversified basket of a bunch of different properties. Some people do it like that. We prefer to show our investors exactly what they're investing in. So but yes, it is a fund where we pop up the fund for a specific purpose. Everybody climbs aboard and we invest in that specific asset.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot better and much more than having an open fund, because when you're putting your money into something, you feel you did your own due diligence on the deal as much as you can do from as a passive investor perspective. And then you feel pretty comfortable with that deal. But then you're all of a sudden, if you're doing like an open fund, then you're throwing all these other random deals. You're like, dude, I don't want to put my money in those. But
Exactly.
at that point, you have no choice.
Exactly.
Dude, tell me some of the biggest challenges that you've been through throughout your syndication career.
I think in the beginning, when you're raising capital, it's just, that's a good question. I think the biggest challenge is building the machine, building the company and building the team around yourself. And it's a completely different skill set. I'm sure that you can attest to this, that in flying, we walk into an environment that's very structured. There's a lot of SOPs. The training programs are excellent. And we're on the receiving end of those. And when you start a business, you're on the other side, you're on the design side, where you're having to really think through. And for me, I know I wanted a business partner when I started this company so badly, because it would have been so much easier to have someone to just link arms with and build this thing with. But I didn't have anybody in my network that fit the bill. And so I went it alone, and it just takes a lot of mental effort to conceptualize, build, and then execute on designing of SOPs and putting people in roles and delegating. It's just a much different skill set than from being on the receiving end of, it's like, hey, you do this, and then we train you very well to proficiency, and then we check you on it. And it's much easier to be on that side than to be on the design side.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's a lot of, sometimes you do a lot of things that just because it's yourself, you know how to do them. So you don't think too much through the steps and you just get them done. And then when you delegate that activity to someone else, I guess when you're a entrepreneur and you're moving so fast, you don't even think of telling someone like the exact steps that you follow. You expect them to figure them out. And you're like, oh man, that's not how it works.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's difficult too, because even when you do hire someone, you have to bring them up to where you're at. And then if a week goes by without communicating, you're like, oh man, I got to catch you up on a lot.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's been really fun. I'm sure you're having a blast building your business, and I'm certainly having a blast building mine.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you, man, sometimes you feel like it just doesn't end. You feel like you have it figured out, and then all of a sudden something else explodes somewhere else, and you're like, man, I got to figure that out now.
Yep.
But I think that's part of what I love. It's like a always evolving machine that is challenging you as you grow with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's one system or software that you could not live without in your company?
Loom. Hands down. Loom, if anybody doesn't know, and I don't think a regular line pilot may not have a whole lot of practical application for this. However, you'd be surprised. So Loom is a screen capture software. Sounds really simple. It's, so what? You hit record, you can talk and record your screen and go through some things, but even something as simple as communicating with your CPA. So sometimes it can be difficult to get your CPA on the phone, right? Or on a Zoom call so that you can go, hey, I need to show you these spreadsheets and this is what I've got going on. It's asynchronous communication, right? So instead of trying to track down your CPA for a call, you could simply pop open Loom, say, hey, this is what I have going on, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to show you through these spreadsheets and blah, blah, blah. And you hit done. It records online. So it's in the cloud. So you just you copy the link to it, put that in an email with the spreadsheets that you're talking about, and you send that off to your CPA. And your CPA is going to go, oh my God, this is so much easier than trying to do this live on each other's schedules. So super useful. What I've used it for is all of the processes that we have in my business. I spent the last 6 months capturing all of those processes, whether it's tagging legal documents or building a deal room or creating investor updates. And I just talked through literally hundreds of processes throughout the business and put them into an Asana board where each task is broken down with a Loom video on instructions on how to do it. What that allowed me to do was, when I brought on a virtual assistant, went through a long hiring process with a VA, had 200 plus applications and boiled down to one just incredible person. Now I don't have to spend the next 6 months spoon feeding them our processes. Everything is in Asana. All the training videos are there. And if she quits, I don't have to say goodbye to all that work that I put into this person. Somebody just comes in and plugs and play again.
Yeah, yeah, I love it, man. That's awesome, dude. So I want to take it more towards the lifestyle design and practice and using what we do for pilots.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the typical pilot that you talk to about this. What are their concerns, questions, and what do you tell them about how they can live a lifestyle like yours?
I think obviously there's a huge spectrum within the pilot community of young guys and girls who are just coming into the airlines or who are at regionals, all the way up to people who have kids and they're just trying to spend more time at home. For me, I'm in a place in my life where I've been very fortunate to spend most of my 20s as an aviation professional with travel benefits, going all over the world and having great experiences and meeting amazing people. I think that we all need to check back in once in a while, living the dream, when in fact we're extremely lucky. We need to check back in with the fact that we've got an amazing career with amazing benefits. We get to do that thing that we all looked up into the sky and thought, wow, that's really cool as kids, right? Not many people can do that. There's a very, very small cohort of the population that gets to do something that they love for a career. So I think checking back in with that as a baseline. And then just in terms of lifestyle design, you have to be very intentional about what you say yes and what you say no to. My entire life has revolved around saying yes to things that are a little bit outside my comfort zone and are a little bit adventurous. I think that one of the coolest things that I ever did was I decided to become a skipper for a company called the Yacht Week, and that I knew nothing about sailing. It was so I went by myself for 5 weeks. And I traveled to Sydney, Croatia, and England to the Solent, and went from knowing absolutely nothing about sailboats to getting my yacht master license in 5 weeks.
What's a skipper? I've never heard that word before.
So it's a boat captain, sailboat captain.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I skippered sailboats in the Mediterranean, the Caribbean for a number of years for a company called the Yacht Week, and it was a blast.
And
that's something
that we're flying. Would you be going back and forth, or how were you doing that?
This was when I was flying. Yeah. So I was a first officer, fairly senior first officer at this point. So I could hold good blocks of days. So it wasn't like I was able to do like a lot of the skippers would, where they would take the entire summer and spend the entire summer in the Mediterranean just doing back-to-back weeks. But I really didn't want to do that anyway. So I was able to go and do it for a couple of weeks on end, come back, fly a few trips, go back. And obviously that's something that, you're not going to do if you're married with kids and you're just trying to stay at home. But it's an example of something where it'd be really easy to say no to that. And instead it's, hey, do you want to make this happen, or do you want to just stay in your comfort zone? Another example was last week, I got invited to fly a jetpack.
But yeah.
Yeah, could not have happened at a worse time. I had 2 concurrent raises going on. I've never been as busy in my business as I was last week. How often do you get invited to go fly a jetpack, right?
Yeah,
So it was like,
yeah.
okay, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to sleep a little bit less this week. And I took a red eye to LA. I drove up to Camarillo Airport and I spent the day flying this jetpack, and I was back on a 6 p.m. flight to Honolulu.
Wow.
And I think that we get a lot of advice in business environments to say no to things, because every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. You're saying no to your routine or to family or to whatever it is. And yes, as you progress through life, you're going to want to say no to more and more things. I say no to a lot of things, but when those things pop up and it's, that would be really cool, but it'd be easier not to do it. I don't know. I encourage people to just say, hey, you only live once. And
Dude, yeah,
that's not just a saying. This is not a practice run. This is it. You only get one shot. So do the things you want to do. You can always make more money.
Dude, I love it, man. So when it comes to pilots investing in real estate, why, like, what's your message to them?
Oh, such a good question. Freedom, 100%. And I don't just mean financial freedom, time freedom, relationship freedom of purpose, those five freedoms, right? So money, passive income, cash flow allows you, just like you retired from the regionals, right? Instead of having to, things are pretty good right now, right? But instead of, say, in really bad times, having to go fly a contract in Asia and be away from your family and do something you don't want to do, live somewhere you don't want to live, you're able to do whatever you want because money isn't an issue. So I think that for us, people who are in real estate, we get it. We've opened Pandora's box. We've seen it. We're like, we can touch it and feel it, and we know it works. For people who have not started really diving into the world of real estate, I don't think it really necessarily clicks like how well this works. It literally works 100% of the time. And that's not to say that every deal is going to be great. And that's not to say that you can't lose money in real estate, but it is the most powerful wealth builder on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And if you invest enough money in it over enough time, you're going to be very wealthy. I think just if the old model of work till you're 65, max out your 401k, hope you have enough peanuts to live on until you die, and that build up and then draw down schedule, it's antiquated and it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
I don't contribute to my 401k. I put all my money into real estate because true multi-generational wealth comes from ownership of assets.
Dude, I'm glad you brought that up because so I obviously when I was in at the airlines, I only contributed the minimum, and then when I got
Mhm.
out, got my money out of the 401k. But when I'm talking to other pilots, I don't really give my thoughts on the 401k just because I don't want them thinking that I'm pushing them to say, hey,
Right,
you shouldn't
right,
invest in
right.
your
You
401k,
should
right?
invest with me instead. Yeah.
And so I leave that topic of the 401k alone just because also the airlines they give you 401k matching and all this other stuff. So what's your take on that? You say you don't contribute, you don't
Well,
take
so
anything
so
at all?
if your airline does matching, then obviously you should contribute because you want the match. But most airlines, at least every airline at the major that I'm aware of, there's no matching required. My company puts in 15% of my gross, whether I put in $1 or I put in the maximum or zero. It doesn't matter. The company is going to put in the exact same amount. I can only put in, I don't know, 15 or 19,000, depending on my income per year anyway. And I would just much rather put that money into more real estate. I've got plenty of stock market exposure. I think after 20 or 30 years in an airline career, your 401k is going to be huge, whether you invest in it or not. And you're going to have a huge amount of stock market exposure. You don't need any more. What you need is cash flow, passive income, right? Because passive income can be offset with passive losses that you can accrue through the depreciation on real estate, all the tax benefits that come along with it. So it's like what you want to do is you want to be taking all that active income and converting it into passive income. Every dollar that you make in the cockpit can then be invested over here, and it can perpetually, that dollar can work for you instead of in a 401k where it's okay, maybe it's up this year, it's down this year, it doesn't produce cash flow, you get done flying and now you're drawing on that account over the years. Instead, you take that dollar and you put it over here, and it literally works for you forever. And when you die, it works for your kids. Never stops working for you because it's in cash flowing assets that are continually generating income.
Yeah, I love it. And do you find that there's a typical avatar within the pilot community that invests in your deals, or have you seen all across the spectrum?
All across the spectrum, we have a ton of non-pilots. We've got doctors, attorneys, business owners, all sorts of people that are just in my social network, plus 1 or 2 degrees of separation. We've got military pilots. We've got every major airline. We have representation from young people who are non-accredited, who maybe just made the jump from regionals to airlines, people who have been in the military for 20 years, flying heavies or fighters who just made the jump. We've got people who are close to retirement, all across the board.
Dude, I love it, man.
Yeah.
I know you got a deal that you're working on. Let's talk about that.
Thanks. Yeah, we're almost fully subscribed on it, and it's actually closing. I didn't mention this to you before we started recording. I think we're going to be closed by next week. So this might be gone, but it's a 506C. We can talk about it publicly. This is a mobile home park deal. Absolutely fantastic. We've been looking for a mobile home park operator for about 2 years now. And we've just been looking for the right fit. Found an operator who we absolutely love. They've got the right special sauce. They've got the relationships. They got it all going on. We watched them for about a year, and they've been building a portfolio throughout the year. They did an open fund over 2022 where they said, okay, we're going to raise $10 million. We're going to acquire assets. It's all going to be in the same basket. We were able to acquire the last $1 million of equity in that fund, which means that we have full visibility on what they've already purchased throughout the year. So it's even better than saying, hey, we're going to raise money for this specific deal. We're actually raising money for stuff that's already been acquired and is already under management. So they bought 3 portfolios this year. Our capital is going to go towards the purchase of the third. However, it's also diversified across it. 2 out of the 3 assets have already been purchased. They're cash flowing north of 10%, cash on cash to investors. As we walk into the fund, the deal's a home run. Pretty stoked on it.
Dude, I love it. Hey,
thanks.
We'll cut this part.
Yeah.
My wife just walked in.
No worries.
All right, we'll resume from here.
Cool.
Dude, I love mobile home parks because there's a lot of cash flow as opposed to with some multifamily deals right now. Multifamily deals, in my opinion, are great for velocity of money, especially right now during these times of compressed cap rates. We'll see how it develops here in the next few months, right? But mobile home parks, great cash flow. And so that's what I love about those. We're reaching here the end of the podcast. And I wanted to ask you, out of all of your experiences that you've done, I know you mentioned one earlier, but I don't know if that's the one that you will put at the top of the list. But that's my question. I want to know which one is the top experience that if you were to put them on a list, you will say this is probably the number one.
I talked about saying yes to things, and so there are a lot. One that instantly comes to mind is a snowboarding trip to Japan. Gosh, I don't know, 5 years ago now. We just got epic powder all week. Was with my best friends, just in waist deep powder, having a blast. I mean, that comes right to mind, but there are just so many. Just curate that lifestyle. You got to say yes to things and just make them happen.
I love it, man. You know what I love the most about you, Tait, is that you're actually living the lifestyle that you tell people you can live, right? You're not just someone telling, hey, you should do this so that you can live a lifestyle like that, but I'm not doing it myself. Right. So I love that, man. Dude, if let me ask you this. If tell me your most favorite book, either business or real estate related, that you have read, and why is that?
I'll give you 2. One, if you haven't read it, because you probably have, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's going to completely shift your ideas about money. It's the foundation. It's every time you listen to a real estate podcast, what's your favorite book? It's like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it really isn't because there's anything very tactical in that. It's just because it's going to shift your mindset about how you think about money. But beyond that, I've got one that's going to be weird. Advanced Tax Strategies by Amanda Hahn and someone else. It's Bigger Pockets published. I think that one of the biggest issues that we have as highly compensated employees is our tax liabilities. And everyone that I know that's an airline pilot or a military pilot or whatever, is trying to reduce their tax liability. And there are so many ways out there when you pair, forward-looking strategy with real estate. There's so many ways that you can literally pay no federal income tax legally. Now, you wouldn't necessarily want to pay 0 because then you go to buy a home next year and they're going to be like, you didn't make any money, so we can't give you a loan. So you don't want to slam it all the way down to 0, but you can definitely take some massive reductions in your tax bill if you just look at your holistic picture and you learn a little bit about the tax code. The book is written all with stories and situations, and so it's actually pretty easy to digest. It's not dry tax code.
Right.
Advanced Tax Strategies, I would highly recommend it.
Love it. Advanced Tax Strategies.
Yep.
Tait, one question I like to ask people is, everything that you have built up to today in your real estate and your business is taken away from you. What would be the fastest way for you to get back to where you are right now?
This is where I think education is so important. I think investing in yourself, investing in your own education, I think is the most important thing when it comes to financial literacy and tax strategy and just managing your own finances. I would be able to get back to where I am incredibly quickly if I was able to retain everything that I know. If everything was taken away, I'd be able to build what I have today. Took me my entire lifetime of experiences to build, and my company has taken me 3 years to build. I could build it back in 3 months because of the knowledge that I have. So I think when you're considering, if you have that analysis paralysis in terms of what do I do? What are my first steps? What should I invest in? Should I invest in storage or multifamily? Don't do any of it. Invest in yourself. Buy a $500, $600, $700, $800 conference ticket and a hotel room and go learn about real estate. Sign up for a course. Read some books, burn down some podcasts, invest in yourself first, because then that will catapult you.
Love it, man. Love that. Tait, how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, our website is turbinecap.com, turbine like the jet engine, and then the CAP for capital. Turbinecap.com. Check us out. You can sign up for our list. We've got really great deal flow. We've got an extremely robust due diligence process for the stuff that we bring to our investor group. I'm very proud of that. We're going to be putting together some newer educational stuff just around the investing landscape as well. Unfortunately, I don't have any sort of thing to give out today. Hey, if you sign up, we'll give you that. We don't have any of that, but it's coming. You can head over to our website at turbinecap.com, or you can reach out to me directly at Tait, Tait, at turbinecap.com.
Love it. For everyone watching or listening, make sure you go follow Tait and sign up for his investor list. You for sure want to follow his, where will probably be the best way where they can follow your lifestyle. Maybe I think your Instagram, right?
Yeah, probably on Instagram. Yeah, just if you follow us on Instagram at Turbine Cap, you'll find us there. And right now my personal Instagram's on private. I might have to open that up and start sharing a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll stay tuned for that.
But I throw stuff on the company page all the time. So yeah, follow us on Instagram.
Follow his company page. You'll get a glimpse of the lifestyle. And we'll put all those links in the show notes for everybody to follow Tait. Tait, it was awesome having you in the show, man.
Thanks a lot, Satch. I appreciate it.
If you want to never miss another one of your kids' practice games, spend more time with your family, or simply do more of what you really like to do aside from flying, grab my book where I explain in detail everything you need to know to make this a reality. Go to bernhardcapital.net/ebook and download my book. It's completely free, and I hope you like it.